The College Board is adding a new score to the SAT. It doesn't measure aptitude in reading or grammar or math or any other academic subject. Instead, the new category is called an adversity score. It will rate students from 0 to 100 based on how much privilege the College Board believes they have. The formula for all this is secret, of course. The people who came up with it know that it's pure pseudoscience and would never withstand public scrutiny, so they're hiding it. But according to the Wall Street Journal, the test will calculate privilege based on 15 different factors. Some will draw on neighborhood statistics like the crime rate, poverty, home values. A student's high school will supply other factors like estimated curricular rigor and free lunch rate. And then there are factors that look at a student's own family, factors like household income and whether both parents live at home. This is a pure inversion of the intent of the SAT. From the first day, the whole point of the test of the SAT was that your background didn't matter. The SAT was devised to create as level a playing field as possible. Everybody took the same test. Grading was blind. It didn't matter where you came from. Nobody thought the SAT was going to make everyone the same. That's impossible. People are not the same. Some people have natural advantages, including on standardized tests, and always will. You can't change that, unfortunately, any more than you could make everyone tall enough to play in the NBA. What you can do, and what you must do, is ensure fairness. Everyone deserves to have the same rights. Everyone should have the same standards and be held to them in the same way. That's the most basic promise of America. The College Board is explicitly rejecting this. On the new SAT, it isn't ability that matters. It's where you rank on the privilege hierarchy. And it's not hard to imagine the perverse effects of this. Under the new standards, if you worked hard and stayed married for the sake of your children, your kids will be punished for that. David Coleman is the left-wing social engineer who runs the College Board. You won't be surprised to know he's also the genius behind Common Core. He says the new standards are designed to address, quote, disparities of wealth reflected in the SAT. But it doesn't take a perfect SAT score to guess who's going to lose under the system. It's who always loses, the middle class. They've been told that America is a meritocracy. Work hard, sacrifice for your kids, and you will be rewarded. But people like David Coleman know that's not true. They know it because they make the rules. They benefit from the corruption of the system. They pad their own kids' applications with phony extracurriculars. They make up some new heritage so they can benefit from the Jim Crow system of racial discrimination we have on college campuses. The new SAT will only increase the opportunities to game the system. For example, the College Board plans to evaluate privilege based on home address. Well, parents already use fake addresses to send their kids to choice public schools in many places. Why won't they use fake addresses from tough neighborhoods to give their kids an advantage in college admissions? Well, of course they will. English language proficiency, household income, family education levels, these are all factors too. So get ready for an awful lot of lying about those subjects as well. Wouldn't it just be easier to reward the kids who know the most about English and math? That's what you'd do if you cared about fairness or the future of your country. You would emphasize achievement over victimhood. Our decadent elites don't care, so they do the opposite. Heather Mac Donald is the author of the book, The Diversity Delusion, and we're happy to have her join us tonight. Heather, thanks very much for coming on. So the SAT was created to prevent exactly what the new SAT will ensure, which is a system where you came from matters, right?
Well, right. And I think what everybody needs to understand, Tucker, is all of this is driven by the seemingly intractable racial achievement gap. Everything about diversity in our culture is a surrogate for that problem. If we could close the racial achievement gap, and the way to do that is by changing culture, the whole discourse about diversity would go up in a puff of smoke overnight, and we'd never hear about this pseudo-scientific concept again. The idea that it's privilege that drives SAT scores and academic success generally, as opposed to hard work, persistence, and self-discipline, is completely ludicrous. We see every year in New York City that Asian kids from poor immigrant backgrounds whoop everybody's ass, regardless of their income levels, because their families, their parents are so relentlessly focused on their students' academic involvement. That is what is necessary to close the academic achievement gap. And until you get rid of the acting white syndrome that stigmatizes academic achievement on the part of black students, unless we get rid of the preferences that black students know about, that sends the message that they don't need to work as hard in order to get admitted to highly selective schools over their non-student of color peers with better scores, we're not going to close that academic achievement gap, and we're going to be saddled with this scourge of diversity, which is simply a way to dismantle precisely the colorblind meritocratic standards that are a key to any society's success.
So the guy who runs the college boards, who went to prestigious schools and worked at McKinsey, of course, I noticed, I'm not surprised, he must know that there's not science behind this. There is no peer-reviewed science behind any of this. It's, as you said, it's pseudoscience. It's made up. How can someone like that bring this to us with a straight face and act as if it's legitimate? Because it's not.
Well, it's too bad, because the College Board has actually resisted for decades the charge that the SAT is simply a function of white privilege. But it's not surprising. The only thing surprising is that they've held out this long. The fact that he has caved and is now thrown the College Board in full speed ahead into the excuse-making grievance industry is simply what you would expect from anybody involved in higher education in this country. So again, all of this is driven by the fact that there's a standard deviation of difference in SAT scores between blacks and whites, a difference that is not determined by a family income. In fact, according to the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, whites from households that make $10,000 or less on average score better than black students on the SAT who come from households making $80,000 to $100,000. So again, Tucker, this is all about culture, and for the College Board to be getting behind the idea that it's about white privilege is completely fallacious and a tragic disservice to the country.
Yeah, it doesn't do a lot for our society at all, I would say. Heather Mac Donald, great to see you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Well, the left has found its preferred angle of attack on new abortion laws in Alabama and Georgia and elsewhere, and you can just guess what it is. They're racist. Women's March leader Linda Sarsour tweeted this, that white women, quote, uphold the patriarchy and are therefore responsible for Georgia's new heartbeat law. She's an out-of-the-closet racist, but still taken seriously for some reason. Model and Planned Parenthood spokeswoman Emily Ratajkowski says the laws will perpetuate, quote, the industrial prison complex by preventing black women from getting abortions. Those are her words. They're not our words. On the left, keeping black children alive is racism. Aborting black children is racial justice. Matt Bevin is the governor of Kentucky and recently appealed a federal court decision striking down one of his state's laws on abortion. Governor Bevin joins us tonight. Governor, thanks very much for coming on. What do you make of this argument?
It is so empty. When you consider the fact that over 40% of all of the abortions performed in America are the taking of young black lives, that more black children, more blacks, period, are killed by abortion than crime, accidents, cancer, disease, AIDS, every other cause of death combined does not add up to the number of blacks that are killed by abortion. And for people to come out and say that it is somehow racial justice to be able to kill black children before they're even born is a remarkably empty argument and highly offensive, frankly, to many people like myself.
And you say that out loud. You're not embarrassed to say what you just said, but so often Republicans don't say that. They just sort of let this argument go unanswered. The people who are encouraging abortion in black neighborhoods are able to seize the moral high ground somehow. Why?
Look where these abortion clinics are established. They are in minority neighborhoods. They intentionally prey upon minorities. The fact that over 60% of abortions are performed on people of color, this is everything that Margaret Sanger wanted when she started Planned Parenthood. She was a eugenist. She was somebody who preached eugenics. She wanted to see that certain undesirable people were weeded out of the populace. And while they pretend they no longer espouse that, that is exactly what they're doing. It is offensive. It is genocidal in many respects, but we're all instructed to turn a blind eye. The reason you are seeing all of this legislation now in states across America is because the more we know medically, the more we know scientifically, the more it is clear that we are killing human beings who do not have any voice, and people are appropriately outraged.
Even now, I would argue, you hear people justify industrial scale abortion, which is what we have millions of abortions over the past 40 years, justify it in ways that suggest they don't think that people in poor neighborhoods, many of them African American, ought to have a ton of kids. Why is that not a racist argument?
It's a remarkably racist argument. The reality, again, it is eugenics. They can couch it in any other term they want. We passed a law here in Kentucky that says you're not allowed to kill a child in the womb based on its race or based on its gender or a disability. And I was immediately sued by the ACLU. People in Planned Parenthood, they think that it's inappropriate to be able to defend those who can't defend themselves. It is highly racist. The abortion industry intentionally targets people of color. This should be an outrage to people, but indeed, in polite company, we're expected to ignore it and pretend that it's not what it is. Blatant racism perpetrated on people who are defenseless.
I'm starting to chuckle. I would love to hear the conversation where you propose legislation or shepherd through legislation that prevents people from committing abortion on the basis of skin color, and the ACLU says you can't do that because why?
The hypocrisy is rank. It really is. And when you consider, and again, we used language specifically from existing federal laws, the civil rights laws and the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. We've used language already in statute in this, and we're immediately sued by the very people who pretend to be the defenders of that language for people outside the womb. We know these are human beings. We know that they're being killed. We know that we are wiping out entire generations of people of color in this nation, and we're doing it for profit in places like Planned Parenthood, and we're expected to turn a blind eye. And myself and governors in other states and other people are fed up with it.
Well, you should be. You have every reason to be. Governor, thank you very much for that.